Floor plan part 3, cash wraps, fitting rooms, and restrooms. Basically for your cash wrap, typically we see a rectangular cash wrap desk. It doesn't have to be. You can make it an arc, you can change it. That's when you can use the pen tool, the arc tool. It's entirely up to you. But I'm just going to show you a basic rectangular cash wrap, which again you use the rectangular shape tool and drag it out to the size that you need. In terms of depicting the actual cashier box or the cash wrap, the computer, typically we just do a square. So you use the rectangle tool and then you press shift, make a square, and sorry, it doesn't seem to want to work right now. Okay. Here we go. Draft a square, and then for the monitor, the screen, we usually do rounded rectangle tool. Okay, so rounded rectangle tool. And at this point, the stroke has to be really thin, 0.25 or less, by the way, typically speaking, depending on how big your floor plan is. Okay, and you can rotate it. So scale it how you need to scale it, and then rotate it. Okay. And that typically, make sure you put white fill and put it on the top, send it to front, sorry. And that typically depicts the screen for the cashier. If you want to do little buttons, you can, but that's a lot of detail. You don't need to do that. You have to decide how many you want to have, if it's just one cash wrap, or if it's two, one on each side and leave space in the middle, or if you want three. Okay, and this is a perfect way of showing three. The important thing about the cash wrap, you can decide if you want a table behind where you can put returns, where you gift wrap, that kind of stuff. The important thing is that you have room, though. That's really important, that you have enough room for the cashier. So you can actually do a symbol for a person, similar to what you do with a mannequin, and do a little circle around it that literally, if you were to pivot this symbol, it's the space that it would take up, and turn it into a dashed line. And that kind of ensures that you'll make sure you have enough room. So this is supposed to be the cashiers, and you can see there's plenty of room for them to walk in there, turn around, put returns, and whatever the case may be. So this is a really good way of ensuring that you have enough room. Next, fitting rooms. If you're doing wall partitions, you need to make sure you do use a thicker stroke weight. So something like this would have, this is 3 points, you can make it 3 points, 4 points. But the idea is that I'm making it a thicker stroke so you can see that it's a wall partition. And then usually, typically, you have your fitting rooms. If you have only one, that should be handicap accessible. If you have multiples, they don't all have to be handicap accessible. You just need one to be. The rest can be smaller. You still need enough room for you to be able to walk into the fitting room, and if you have the one or the one that's handicapped, it needs to be handicap accessible. Now, typically speaking, if you have a long corridor, you don't want your handicap at the farthest spot. That's not ideal. You don't want the person on the wheelchair with the crutches, with the cane, to have to walk the farthest. However, typically speaking, depending on your setup, something like this where you only have a couple, sometimes the larger one is on the corner because that will allow for the greatest amount of room. For something like this where you don't have to walk as much, this is perfectly fine. But again, if you have a very long corridor, you don't want the handicap to be at the very end, the farthest one to get to. Again, you can do the same hint I gave you with at the cash wrap, which is you can put a person symbol and actually the circle around them, so you can again ensure that they'll actually fit. Again, you can make the curvature, the arc of the door dash, or you can make it solid. Entirely up to you. And in terms of inside the fitting room, you want to make sure that there's some sort of mirror. This is either a bench or a chair or some pegs. Okay. So this is a bench, and this is some pegs. This is a long bench, this is a little stool chair attached to the wall, and these are some pegs. Okay? but entirely up to you how you want to do, what you want to include. Also, if you want to include a three-way mirror, we just use 3 rectangles, and we just put them together as if they were hinged. And if you want chairs in the sitting area, typically speaking, we do a square, so rectangle tool, press shift. Then we do rounded rectangles for the top and the arms, and you can do a little circle for the center if you wanted to make it look tufted. Okay. Also, what you can do for your fitting room is instead of a door, you can instead of the door swinging open, you can have it swing out. Careful with that though, because it can get dangerous. If you swing out the door open and someone's walking by, they can get hit. So typically speaking, you'd rather it swing open into the inside. But again, you need to make sure that someone has enough room to walk through in there. You don't have to use doors. If you choose to do a curtain, you can do that. And the way we depict a curtain is you're going to, instead of deleting the line that you have when you cut, when you use a scissor tool, you're going to keep that line and you're going to turn it into a zigzag. So you're going to go up on your menu, Effect, Distort and Transform, and select Zigzag. Click on Preview, and don't panic when you first see it. It looks ridiculous. Don't worry about it. First thing you need to do is get the size much smaller. So we're talking about 0.01, 0.02. And then you want to increase the ridges per segment. In this case, about 15 looks good. One thing when you're doing this, see how this point ends up and this point ends down. You want both points to end up or down, so when you move it onto the perimeter, it fits. So you don't want it, if 10 gives me one up, one down, I'm going to say 11, and now both points are pointing up. And also, we don't leave them corner, we make it smooth because that's what fabric does. And then I use my arrow keys. Click OK. And now I can use my arrow keys to move the position of my curtain. And now, from a bird's eye view, that's what a curtain looks like. Okay. Either way, it does need to be big enough for someone to get through. Okay. So curtain or door, it's entirely up to you. And last, restrooms. If you indeed are going to use a restroom, and again, typically they are square. But I guess you can do rounded rectangle. It's entirely up to you how you're setting it up. But the necessary items that you need that are very important, you obviously need a toilet, and basically the easiest way for to depict a toilet is to do ellipse, around, just basically an oval. Okay, make sure the size is appropriate, and then you do a rounded rectangle on top of it. Okay, so you're going to go to rounded rectangle, and then you're just going to do one on top. You do need to make sure that the rounded rectangle has a white fill. You send it to the front. And that's the appropriate size. Okay, you can make it more oblong, you can make it rounder. And you need a sink, so ovals, ellipse tools, and then circles and a rectangle for the faucet. You need to show some sort of faucet in a trash can, trash bin, receptacle, whatever you want. Okay. Also a mirror, and that's what the thin rectangle is, right in front of the faucet typically. You don't have to have a mirror, although it's nice for the customer. And again, you can show a person and show the circumference, so you show that there's enough room. And you need to make sure you have the door either swinging open or swinging out, depending on what you have. If you have a long corridor here and customers are going to go through, or employees to get to somewhere, I don't necessarily recommend that the doors swing out. I recommend that they swing in. If it is a small bathroom, you don't have a lot of room, and there's no other entrance here, I mean there's nothing here except maybe an emergency exit, then it's okay, because then it allows more room in the bathroom without the door having to swing open. However, if there's other things here that a customer can go through, employees go through, then I don't recommend the door swinging out. I recommend they swing inside for safety reasons. You don't want someone to get hit. And that pretty much takes care of our floor plan layout for cash wrap, fitting room, and bathroom.